First of all, I would like to say that MPGC is one very popular conference that ENOC is hosting once every 2 years. And this importance comes from the fact that we are also capturing all the challenges and all the changes and trying to address those changes and challenges in a very professional and expert way, so that all the players within the industry are sitting in one room, discussing these challenges, exchanging ideas, debating solutions, and it becomes increasingly important to give that platform for the industry to actually, come together and talk.
The basics concept of the conference is to try to bring together all the key players on the trading aspects. This conference emphasizes on the trading aspects rather than other parts of the industry. So we had the top trading actors at the conference, from BP, Total, from the trading houses, Vitol, Trafigura, and people talked about how they see that the current oil market is going to result in additional volume of trading, what kind of pressures are coming on the market. And the conclusion basically is that the market can be quite stable in the range of $65 to $75 oil. And if there are geopolitical factors, big wars or sanctions, of course, they can impact the price. But by itself, it should be sustained at that level. And that many of the countries in this region are now considering ways to enhance their income. Most of them would like to have joint ventures with international players on the refined product side. On the crude side, they feel comfortable, they can sell okay. But on the product side, they would like to see players. And so Oman has done this already. ADNOC is a joint venture, and now it's going to follow. Kuwait, Qatar, and Iran are also considering how to do it to be able to have this joint venture with the private companies. So that's one part of the conference. The other part of the conference started focusing on issues relating to refining. Is the refining profitable today? There are some problems with the short-term refining margins, but for the next 10 years, refining margin looks pretty okay. People are likely to do well. But long-term, the future of oil is in question, because the demand growth is going to slow down significantly in the latter part of 2020s. And in 2030s. So the growth of oil we've seen in the past is not going to happen to continue. So that would have to be moderated in the future. So building new refineries may not be as easy to do these days as it was in the past. And certainly the banks will not loan money. But the governments, if they wish to do it, they can go ahead and do it. We discussed issues relating to the big developments coming, the IMO 2020, which is coming next year. How does it impact availability of fuels? The conclusion was that the IMO is no longer such a big problem because of the different blends being offered in the market by big players such as Shell, ExxonMobil, BP, Total, that much of the requirements can be met, and other requirements will be met by putting scrubbers on the board of ships. And that is happening already. But in the first half of 2020, it still be chaos. But within 2 years, the market will come back to itself.
For us, MPGC is obviously vital in the sense that it's the major oil and gas conference in the Middle East. It rotates around. We participate every year. We've participated every year for 27 years since it started. In terms of the panel that we just saw a discussion with, it was an interesting group in the sense that it was 4 bankers, they're very well-known bank analysts, plus an OPEC governor who is very analytical focused as well. So this was a little bit different panel, and before we had a lot of industry people. This is people looking at the market closely. The areas that we focused on are a lot of the things that are in the headlines recently, like China, China demand growth, what's happening with the global economy, etc. But really what sort of raised the most questions and where there was most disagreement was what is going to happen with U.S. oil production, because we've been seeing it growing by 1 million barrels a day plus for several years now, and that's really put pressure on OPEC and to cut back, and it's occasionally put pressure on price. So there was a lot of disagreement on the panel. Some people had the U.S. production going way up. Others think that it'll be more challenged and start to flatten out. I don't know that there was a clear resolution. The general thought, though, was that in the near term anyway, there's more upside risk, I would say, to the oil price than downside because there's so many points of potential disruption. But when we get out to the future, again, there was risk to the downside in terms of price from where we're at today. So it made a couple people nervous, essentially, in the room. I think made some people nervous just because it appears the U.S. could continue to come into the market.
I think the sort of conferences that's happening between Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Fujairah, and especially the minister today, we noticed the ministerial speak that is yes, and the sort of global things that we found. What we found that there is the GCC secretary and especially OPEC and OPEC, what they are trying to do, they're going to try to do the balancing of the market. So they are not focusing on the price itself as they are focusing on the balancing the market. If they balance the market, then the price will be stable. From that point of view, also what we noticed with the ministry speaker to the minister speaker Zainis Mazroui, that's also the GCC thinking that okay, why we don't enter the gas market. So they are also studying with the cooperation with GCC to do sort of cooperation with the interfaces of the gas. So for us, it's very important to find out also in Fujairah what can we do, what can we help. That they have a very location in Fujairah that is today we'll find the trading market is very active. Aramco, they have the regional offices in Fujairah. ADNOC thinking seriously to do the trading arm. Kuwaiti also looking into that area. So that's where we are attending this course to learn actually more. And we see how Fujairah could help this sort of industry.
What we are excited about is the fact that the LNG demand around the world has been growing at a very healthy, steady rate. And so bringing the U.S. LNG revolution to the world and increasing the volumes of LNG from the United States. What we talked about today is really not only the growing demand picture in Asia and around the world over the last several years and into the future, but the extreme need for additional major investment in the United States in infrastructure, both in LNG plants. We need to build more LNG facilities as well as pipelines. The growth in the United States gas is not necessarily connected to demand. So the demand in the U.S. for gas has been relatively flat, but and the prices are low around the world at the moment, and still gas is growing. And the reason for that is because gas is, in certain parts of the country, is being developed as associated gas of oil. So in the Permian, which is the largest oil field in the world, it is high gas content. So we are seeing remarkable increases in gas production in the United States, but the cost for that gas in those areas of the United States is now at zero and even at negative prices. So people are paying, producers of gas are paying others to take that gas away. What we need to have is investment in infrastructure, in pipelines and in LNG terminals. And that's why Tellurian is conceived this model, an integrated model, where we will be producing our own gas and having access to the cheapest gas in the United States so that we can deliver to the world very cheap LNG at around $4 an MMBTU in FOB, meaning on the ship in the United States on the Gulf Coast. That is what we believe will be the most attractive LNG prices, and that's why we're also excited to be here in the Middle East as we grow our partners and seek to increase the members who are coming into our project in Driftwood in the United States.
LNG, as we noticed, sort of a new market for us, but is what we are noticing, what's happening in Europe or what is happening in the Far East, mostly is the domestics. For us, the domestic is coming recently. As soon as the domestic is coming, also the bunkering will cut, but the bunkering, as you know, that will take time. So for us, we are focusing also in Fujairah how we can serve that small market domestically with some company, and then after that we will think seriously how can we help bunker. Why that the people taking maybe 10 to 15 years will pick up. It's picking up, but it's very slowly.